I think we are ready to get started here on the stage, and there's so much to talk about. So if I could just ask you to find your way to your seats. I think you know where the restrooms are out the door. Feel free to go in and out as you need to, but we'll go ahead and get started. So we have so many of you here. What a delight to see the energy and the curiosity and the advocacy around this topic. And just to acknowledge right now, there are so many people in this room who are doing work every single day around this topic. I know you have questions and you have insight. I'd like to introduce myself first. My name is Lori Walsh. I am with South Dakota Public Broadcasting. I have a daily talk show called In the Moment, and we have a great production team. This is a topic that we are very interested in having more conversations about. So if you're in the audience and you think, hey, there's something that you just did not get covered today, I want to be on this show with a group of my cohort. You are officially invited. You can reach out to us at inthemoment@sdpb.org, and our producers are happy to look through those emails, take your ideas, take anything that we might have missed or you want expanded upon, and we'll continue to have those conversations. That's what public radio does for everyone across the region. Oh, thank you. That's very nice. We are going to also take questions tonight. Those questions will come to my phone at some point in the evening. There will be a slide posted with a phone number. It's not my phone number, but they'll get forwarded to my phone, and I'll go through and ask those questions for you. And we'll give about 15 minutes at the end of our time here together for that. I'm going to let all of our panelists here introduce themselves in a moment, but first, thank you very much to the Sioux Falls Area Community Foundation for their support of the Sioux Falls Regional Forum on Homelessness. So please join me in thanking them for their support to this work. So we have some connectivity on this panel. There's a lot of folks who work together on things. Some of what they do you probably already know. Some of it might surprise you. So we're going to let folks introduce themselves for the first 10, 15 minutes. By the time we move down the line, tell us who you are and kind of who you work with. And then let's just start with something that's really key and important right now in your work through the state, through the county, through the city, that you want to elevate for people. So let's start with Secretary Althoff, please.
Thank you, Lori. Matt Althoff, appointed Cabinet Secretary for the Department of Social Services about 2 years ago, at the beginning of Governor Noem's second term. What a privilege it has been to be in this role. I am a Sioux Falls resident. I spend a lot of my time in Pierre, but have spent a lot of my professional life in Sioux Falls working prior to this role at the Catholic Diocese. I served as Chancellor for about 13 years. Extraordinarily grateful for the times I've spent on the board at St. Francis House, for the times we collaborated to create the Bishop Dudley Hospitality House under Bishop Swain's leadership. Department of Social Services is quite a safety net provider. Its catchment, of course, is the entire state. We deliver a lot of services directly. We deliver a lot of services indirectly through collaborating partners. Humbled to have many of them represented here tonight. It's a really big enterprise. There's 1,500 individuals that I join as colleagues in mission in the department. We have 31 different service outreaches across the state. Really, really grateful and excited about what's happening here in Sioux Falls. Just this week, actually, we've begun our transition from our downtown office to our new one-stop building. We're excited for what that's going to do for delivery of services to customers, as we call them, clients. A lot of things that are happening in the department at any given moment, particularly to homelessness. I would say that, right, that's what you want me to go to, is one thing we're facing. I can boil it down to a couple real big issues. I suspect we'll dive deeper into these. Yes, we deliver economic assistance. A lot of people would refer that as welfare. You'd know those as names as Medicaid, as TANF, as SNAP, or food stamps. We, in complement to every one of those benefits, we deliver employment services to individuals who qualify for any of these programs. That's a really important part of it, because we firmly believe in the department that through work we discover our own sense of dignity, or we discover fulfillment, a sense of fulfillment when we serve others in an organized fashion, such as work. We also make certain that there's access to behavioral health. We all know that in the context of homelessness, I suspect all of us are here because we realize it is a contributing factor in a disproportionate number of those who are suffering, experiencing homelessness. So we spend a lot of time supporting what we call community mental health clinics. Grateful to have our colleagues from Southeastern Behavioral Health, Tiffany Wolfgang and Chris Graham, the leaders there, give access to those who are income qualified. That would be the same with substance use. For those that meet income criteria, they would have ready access to assessments and ongoing treatment thanks to the funding provided through the Department of Social Services. We have a lot of providers here in this community that do that. And last, I would just emphasize crisis services. If in fact you're experiencing, because of substance use, a crisis, or because of a mental health issue, you have severe mental illness, or you're having a behavioral health crisis, we have worked very, very hard to create regional facilities where you have a walk-in opportunity to receive treatment. So a lot of state funding through the department that directs those. In this community, you would know that as the link, you would know that as a very behavioral health for those crisis services. So some of the areas of focus, Lori, I hope I've answered your question.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Larissa Deedrich. I am the Executive Director of Sioux Falls Housing and Redevelopment Commission and Affordable Housing Solutions. And I just want to start off by saying how wonderful it is to see everyone here and see how passionate everyone is about dealing with the homelessness and the affordable housing issue that we have. So I'm just going to start off by saying some programs that we're extremely excited about and I hope to dive into a little bit more this evening. First of all would be our homeless voucher program. So we're really excited to partner with all of our service agencies in the Sioux Falls area to help assist homeless folks by giving them a Section 8 voucher. We're using a housing first model with that to get people housed, get them inside, get them safe, warm, fed, clothed, and then work with them on that service plan. So for us, it's not just about taking homelessness from the street. It's about keeping homelessness off the street and working with people for a long-term plan. In addition to that, we have some great partnerships that we're working on, some huge grant opportunities that we are facing. And we are also working through our nonprofit instrumentality, which is Affordable Housing Solutions. We're working with local developers to not only develop homes for people, but create those sustainable homes for renters and for homeowners. So we have a lot of programs, a lot of things that I don't think people realize that we do, but we're really excited to be here and be a part of Sioux Falls.
Hey guys, good evening. My name is Paul TenHaken. I've been the mayor of City Sioux Falls for 7 years. Love to see this great turnout. I was leaving City Hall half hour ago and I said to someone, there could be 20 people here or 200, I have no idea. And so love to see the turnout. And some of you are standing in the back. There's some seats still sprinkled in, so feel free to come on up. Let me kind of tell you how this came together. We met with Larissa, I don't know, a few months ago maybe, and we were talking about maybe showing a film. There's a film, there's several films out there about homelessness and communities and so forth, and we said, you know, that's fine, and those serve a purpose, but I think what would be more impactful is educating the community and talking to the community about the government's role in this. So you'll notice up here, this is government and quasi-government in Sioux Falls housing people. There's no nonprofits, no service providers. It's not that's not an important piece of the puzzle. And I think we actually have a slide that's maybe going to come up here at some point and show that. Here it is. But we really wanted to focus on the stuff that maybe you don't know or the community doesn't know that we do as government providers. So tonight you have the city of Sioux Falls, you have the state of South Dakota, you have Minnehaha County, and I would put Sioux Falls Housing as kind of this nonprofit, quasi-governmental entity that kind of crosses over several of those. There's no one from the business community, there's no one from the public, none of our faith communities, and none of other programs. Those are all important pieces of the puzzle. And this is really important because homelessness is I use this term a lot, and I use it when I promote this event. This is what we call a wicked problem. Okay? Wicked problems have no solutions. We're never going to get to a point in this community where we are going to say, we solved homelessness. Okay? They are problems with tensions to be managed. Okay? Transit, another wicked problem in our community. Affordable housing, wicked problem. Okay? Workforce. You're never going to say, we finally have enough workforce. Thank you. These are wicked problems. They're hard. Okay? And the inputs are always changing, and the goalposts are always moving. On top of that, no one owns it. Okay? So putting my private sector hat on, if you have a problem in a company, but why aren't these widgets getting done? Well, everybody's kind of in charge of those widgets getting done. Well, but who's in charge of that department? Well, there's kind of 8 people that are in charge of that department. Well, like, no, who's really in charge? Well, no one. That is homelessness. Okay? That is homelessness. We are all in charge of this. And so that's why collaboration on this issue, more than any other issue that we deal with in the city, collaboration is more important. I cannot think of an issue that we deal with where we have more slices of a pie than we have in this issue. Okay? It is the most complicated and most difficult issue in which to collaborate on. I'm being very candid. It's challenging. Okay? There's a lot of different opinions on what success looks like. There's a lot of different opinions on how we handle homelessness and the underlying conditions that led to homelessness. Homelessness is the symptom, the root causes, or what we really need to dig into. What are the root causes that led people to have to seek care for homelessness and seek services for homelessness, which a lot of those are up there. So we want to talk about a few of those tonight and make this community aware of the things the county does, which we sat in a meeting a couple weeks ago, and Dean shared with me some stuff. I'm like, no idea you did that. Okay? And no idea the state did some things when we talked about this forum, and Matt shared some things to say, no idea that you did that. But what happens in a community, and the reason that I kind of wanted to organize this, is when there's homelessness in a community, the throat to choke typically is the mayor. What are you doing about it, mayor? I don't know how often people go to the county commission and at public input and talk about homelessness. Never? Never. But they go to the mayor. And the mayor's one slice of this pie. So I'll say one last thing, and then I'll let Dean go. Sioux Falls is the 115th largest city in the country now, right around there. And there is a group of mayors that are part of something called the Menino Study of Mayors. It's the 200 largest cities in the country, and they survey these mayors every year. Boston University does it. And this year, we make time for it. All these mayors make time for it of every city because the data is so valuable. One of the questions they asked this year is, what's one issue that you get the most pressure on in your community to do something about? And the number one issue was homelessness. Follow-up question later on, what's an issue that you get pressure to solve but you feel like you have the least control over? Homelessness. Okay? So we have this tremendous pressure to do something, do something, do something, but we're one slice of the pie. So that's not a woe is me, but that is a call for collaboration is so key in this. I cannot stress that enough. And that's why we're sitting up here together tonight, because we really want to show you there is collaboration that happens in this wicked problem.
Thank you, Mayor. Dean Karsky, I'm a Minnehaha County Commissioner, just entered my 9th year. Current Commission Chair. I want to thank Commissioners Bleinberg and Kipley for being here. I don't know if any other commissioners are here, but as a Minnehaha County Commissioner, you learn that there's a lot going on that you probably didn't think you'd get involved in. And I want to tip my hat to Carrie Benz and Lori Monison, the Human Services staff. There's over 24 people that work in Minnehaha County Human Services, and a dozen of them, about almost 14 of them, I believe, really work on the issue of homelessness. Statutorily, the county is the last resort for poor relief. Well, within the definition of poor relief becomes homelessness. County, for those of you who've been around a while, probably remember we used to have a poor farm up on the northeast corner of town. That hasn't been, the property's still there, the county highway department's there, and so is the county cemetery. If you didn't know, we have a county cemetery. Get into that a little bit later. But we don't have a poor farm anymore. That was dissolved a while ago. But what we really do, Minnehaha County, we're statutorily the last resort. By default, we've become the first stop for the homeless community. And in that, I mean, we don't build facilities. We don't build homeless shelters as a county. The city doesn't build homeless shelters. But what Minnehaha County does is we help to manage and coordinate all the programs. We know who the landlords are that will help us with different subsets of homeless people. We know where to get vouchers. We know where we can take people to or send people to, and we do our best to collaborate all those services between all the nonprofits, the different shelters, and that type of thing. So we are kind of the hub for that coordination factor. And then we also, as a last resort, I mean, our budget for just for rent and deposits and that type of thing is nearly $1 million to assist people. We want to keep people from becoming homeless so we don't have to help them once they become homeless. So it's easier to prevent it than it is to have that issue that we've got to manage, because homelessness is an issue, as the mayor said that. And I personally hate to say it's a problem. It's an issue. It's going to be around forever. And it's how we manage it. So that's why we're here today. We're here to point out all the great things that we've got going on and try to collaborate more and look for input from the community, take your questions, try to answer them, and let you know really what we've got going on and how we're doing our best to manage the issue of homelessness and how we're trying to prevent it as much as we are to manage it. So, and I too am amazed at the turnout tonight. So it's great to see so many faces here. Thank you.
Let's talk a little bit about data and information that you have. Do you have the right kind of actionable data that you can communicate to some of the nonprofits so that we know what's happening and when, whether it's month by month or weather events or, you know, housing crunch? There's an apartment fire, let's say, and there's a shortage in housing, and all those people are going to be searching for affordable housing. Or, you know, a business closes and, you know, people are losing their jobs. Are there gaps in the actionable data, and we'll start with Mayor TenHaken, that you would like to see collected more?
Yeah, you know, I sometimes tell my team, in God we trust, everybody else bring data, okay? Because we need data to make good decisions. And I can speak for the city in that we do not have good data on the homelessness issue. We don't. If you asked me right now, what's the size of our homeless population? What's the zip codes of our homeless population? How long have they been homeless? Show me a chart and a breakdown. Who are our 35 most chronically homeless in our community? I don't have any. What are their names? I do not have that as the mayor of Sioux Falls. And I think people would be flabbergasted that I don't have this data. So I'm get the pressure to fix it, but I don't have the data to know what I'm even fixing. I just know it's a challenge.
Who has the data?
Everybody.
Secretary, do you have actionable data that you can provide?
Here's a data that I think is important for us all. We're talking about those who happen to not have a roof over their head tonight, and that comes to mind especially this week when we've seen another death by exposure in our community. We all grieve in these moments, but 148,000 South Dakotans are Medicaid enrolled at one point last year. 71,000 South Dakotans are SNAP enrolled. They enroll because of their income level. They enroll because their income level was matched against the federal poverty level. And I think that's the number that we ought to, if we're going to be a community that's collaborating, we have to be mindful that at any given moment, there's a household that's one behavioral health crisis away, that's one medical episode, one accident away, one car accident away, one missed utility payment away from becoming that individual. That statistic, which is those who don't currently have it. So I share in the frustration with the mayor. We in government tend to have a lot of aggregation, and our scale at a statewide level makes for some pretty impressive numbers. I'm not sure that it actually leads us to it, and that's where I continue to emphasize to our staff, just to be very clear, is that's why we never miss the opportunity to lift a soul. How do we lift up? How do we give encouragement beyond? Because they might be on the verge. We got them eligible, we got them enrolled, but it is going to be that added lift on the personal touches that we do. Mindful that it is never simply the infrastructure of government that causes persons to avoid homelessness. We do all of this, to the mayor's great point, the pie chart up here, in collaboration with this beautiful reflection, this potpourri, if you will, of nonprofits and religious groups that are out here today that accompany, infrastructure accompaniment, I think is really how we work through that data, how we work through that mindfulness of who's on the verge or who has actually now fallen into the point where they do not have a place to lay their head that's beneath a roof of their own. You can claim that as a dodge. You know, the only thing I'm aware of, Mayor, is of course the one-time count is really staggering. And I guess where I'm going with that is that I think, not to all of you here tonight, you're here because you care. God bless you. But I find it amazing when people lay out the statistics of what does federal poverty level mean for a household of 4? What is that amount of money? And how many people? I just said 149,000. This is next to no income. And so how many of our fellow Sioux Falls residents or our fellow South Dakota residents are living off of that little income? We know this because they've now enrolled. I think that to me is the data point, is that there's a lot of people that are not benefiting from what we might look around and see the affluence of our great nation, our great community, the innovation of the communities that we all so are privileged to call as our home. So that's the data point that I tend to be focused on, Lori.
So I just want to get, because what I'm trying to get at here is what we don't have any way of measuring, and clarify this if I'm wrong, because I kind of hope I'm wrong, but we don't have any way of measuring if all this pie chart that's working in this one direction is having the impact of reducing homelessness in this region. That is correct. And you could see where that would be frustrating for people. Yeah.
And data is a tricky thing because there's so many different definitions of what homelessness is. There's one on the federal level, one on the state level, one on the county level. What it really comes down to is assisting who is homeless at the time. Next week, I believe, is the street count for homelessness. I look to Carrie, she's my resource here. So, and you know, we're gonna have a picture of one day of what homelessness looks like in Sioux Falls. Shout out to the Community Foundation and their work here, and they came to Minnehaha County and gave us a $30,000 grant so we could put everybody on the same page. The problems are truly somewhat systemic in that, how does the system define these things? We're not all talking the same language, so getting us all together and talking the same way about the same problem. What is the definition? What does this mean? And that's really the effort we've been putting a lot of time into, to work with our collaborators to say, okay, when you say this, what do you mean, so that we are all talking about the same thing. So data's tricky, and it's useful, but it's really only good for that one day.
Larissa, talk a little bit about housing too, because we know that this region has one of the lowest unemployment rates in the nation, but yet homelessness doubled in 2024. So is there a wage gap to being able to rent something and get a job that's a 40-hour-a-week job? The Secretary talked about the value of work. Many of these people are working and still are having struggle meeting that rent. Talk a little bit about the gap between employment and wages and rental fees.
You're correct. So there is a huge gap in the wage and the cost of living these days. And I just want to preface a little bit here and say, you know, I've been with the Sioux Falls Commission for a year. I have 18 years in the affordable housing industry, and I've lived in communities all across this country who all have the same problem with homelessness. But what I would like to say is, coming to Sioux Falls, I've seen the improvements that Sioux Falls wants to make, that the county wants to make, with the implementation of our coordinated entry system through South Dakota Housing, with the Healthcare Center of Network. I mean, these are all resources that have been put in place so that we can collect that data. And so I just wanted to preface my answer with that. So I do feel like there is a need for data, there's a need to bring it all together, but I think that we've made huge strides in doing that just in the time that I've been here. But to talk about your question about the wage gap, so a lot of our programs, we assist people in all income levels, truly. So we no longer just assist poor people, and that's what people connotate public housing with. We work with people at 30% area median income all the way up to 80% area median income. And so that wage gap has turned into more of us assisting workforce families as opposed to very low income families. If I could venture to say, and again, we do have the data that could back that up internally at the Housing Authority, a lot of our residents are the workforce community in Sioux Falls and the surrounding area. They just need that little bit of assistance to make ends meet in their rent.
There was a report and a study recently, right, within the last 2 years, there was a report on homelessness for the city of Sioux Falls. Were there takeaways from that you were able to implement things that were popular, but you have not been able to implement for a particular reason? Nod back to that report, Mayor, and tell us what was in there that perhaps has already been taken action on, and what was in there that, you know, people are going to be disappointed that you haven't done yet and you'd like to respond to.
I think I saw, Councilor McCurris is here, who when he got on City Council, tackled this right away, put together a task force on this, and a few things came out of that, including the desire to kind of meet people where they're at, put together a street team, which we've now had going for about a year, so trying to meet people where they're at in the street. Midwest Street Medicine's another group that's doing some of that work. What these reports will tell us is, and I'm sure we'll talk about this, is just the lack of affordable housing. So where does someone move to? And to me, there's a little bit of a natural flow we have from Bishop Dudley to UGM to St. Francis House and then out, okay? We kind of have a triage system already in place. Well, when they're down at St. Francis House, Julie does an incredible job there, where do they go? And where can they afford to go? And especially if they got a felony hanging on their record, okay? Huge problem. Well, let me tell you what, last night, or Tuesday night, Brent Tucker, Sioux Falls Housing, was at our city council meeting. We're trying to rezone 12th and I-29 for how many units we're going to be there? 107? 170 workforce housing units. We probably had 12 people come up pissed, fighting. I mean, 12th and I-29, okay? I don't know what else is going, maybe put a Lowe's or something there, but it's not, it's a great spot for this. It's near bus routes, it's like, but, and these are not crappy looking apartments. These are nice workforce housing apartments. And these people just came and railed about how terrible this project is. And so we are constantly
What did you
swimming.
say to them? How did you respond?
I can't, because I have to sit there at those meetings. I can't say a thing. It's the worst.
What would you want to say to them now,
What
to
I
a
wanna say-
neighborhood who is questioning the presence of those services in the neighborhood?
Yeah.
And I live forever across from the St. Francis House, so I've certainly heard this in the neighborhood that I grew up in. My brother still owns that home. I hear what the neighbors say. What do you want to say back to neighbors about? And I will say, there's a lot of support in that neighborhood. You know, spoiler alert, a lot of people in that neighborhood love St. Francis House and are there to volunteer
Right.
and help and support them and appreciate how they communicate with the neighborhood. So I want to make sure I'm clear about that. But what would you say for the people who were saying, not in my neighborhood?
Right. Well, in that specific example, there's already apartments all around it. So it's an appropriate use, it's appropriate everything. So
You just
it's
diss my neighborhood?
no, not yours, where we're trying to rezone this
It's
property.
good your neighborhood. We
So
can
I
put
guess
it there.
what I'm saying is, sometimes people will say, we need more housing, we need more affordable housing. What are you doing, city? And it's like, man, we're doing a lot. We're trying to, work with places like Sioux Falls Housing on rezones like this. We worked like the Dickens on that 600 Plaza building, which was a huge bright red spot on our crime heat map for many, many, many years. And we got that building gone, and we put city dollars into that project, and it's now raised. And that, with Southeastern Behavioral Health is going to go in there, and a project with Lloyd Companies is now going to have tax credit, low-income housing is going to go there. So we're doing things that they take 7 degrees for you to see that, like, that 600 Plaza building does not happen with that tax credit, low-income housing, if the city does not use the bully pulpit to say something's got to change here. So it's happening, but it takes time.
Larissa, you would add what?
Yeah, so I would really honestly just like to say to those people who are saying not in my backyard is let's stop thinking about the stigma of affordable housing. The folks who are moving into these units are your colleagues, they're your coworkers, they're already your neighbors. So I think that that's what we need to talk about. We need to bring that out and let people realize that we're not talking about the old stigma of public housing, very low, poor people. These are people who are workforce housing. These are your neighbors, your friends, your relatives.
Secretary, if someone in your family or you and your family were experiencing housing instability and you had one of these crises, what would frustrate you about the current system that you would like to fix?
Well, I think you'll learn about those of us who have the benefit of a great education and a very stable employment and transportation that works. We take for granted the navigation of accessing various touch points. So here you have 4 heads of state, we'll call it, but yet there's different delivery systems in that infrastructure we call the government delivers, and it can be, if I were to walk up to the Department of Social Services front desk and say, I need help, I'm at my rope's end. I don't know where else to turn, and I'm dying to my pride right now that I'm having to ask for government assistance for the first time in my life. I have a sneaking suspicion you don't know what TANF stands for, what it does. You certainly don't know what SNAP is. And you're probably not even thinking about, well, my health care, I need to get Medicaid, or I have child care assistance, right? I mean, we in government think so often about we pigeon or create these lanes of programming that we provide. That is a huge challenge for anybody who's navigating it for the first time. That's what I would say if I've got that family member that's stumbling and falling, making a series of bad decisions. Perhaps they're, really struggling in their addiction. Whatever the impairment that is causing the downward spiral, whether their own doing or, a whole lot of bad luck, now you're forced with the uphill climb of navigating through all these various infrastructure things. Hence, I would again shout out my gratitude for all of our nonprofits here that do private accompaniment. We do our best to, provide good customer service, good explanation, walking through applications, explaining what the benefit does. But then there's this other issue that, well, gosh, I lost my driver's license and I'm here applying downtown, but I got to go clear over here to Russell, and then I got to go back to the county maybe for a housing stipend. All of you can picture these places from 811 East 10th over to Russell, back downtown to North Minnesota Avenue. Nothing for me, thanks be to God. I've got an easy vehicle that's reliable, dependable, starts every time I hit the start button. But for somebody whose car is broken, for somebody who's penny pinching because they know it's food or it's utilities, whatever the decisions that they're now at their last pennies are at, that commute across town to access these few services becomes just a real mountainous barrier. I'm not saying anything that's profound. I suspect everybody in this room understands that. But I think sometimes it's really important to be very specific about what the navigational challenges are for anybody who's, I know there's help out there, but how do I access the right one and how do I know is the right one is what I would answer your question with.
Thank you. Commissioner, where are the gaps that you see between what we this group is, government entities are providing and what people are asking for?
Where are the gaps? A lot of times, and Mayor, I watched that Tuesday night, I felt for you. Giving a homeless person shelter, 4 walls and a roof, is a very short-term solution to a homelessness problem. We are trying to establish or make that person self-reliant so that they don't continue in the program, that continuous fostering off of the government. So programs that go with shelter to help people to learn whatever it is, wherever their shortcomings are, and maybe were incarcerated for a time, readapting back into the society, into the community. There's so many service providers, so many of our nonprofits that we partner with to provide programs, because just putting somebody in a house isn't going to make them self-reliant. We got to help them become self-reliant. And that's really needs to be that gap, that shortcoming that we need to be addressing. How do we help people get to that next level so that they can take care of themselves?
And can I just say something? When we talk about gaps, we're also asking some of our shelters to be mental health hospitals and clinics.
And nursing homes.
And nursing homes. And they are simply not set up to care for the type of people that we are putting in their places. And so a major gap we have is dealing with mental illness in our homeless community. And addiction's a whole nother issue. We talk about the link and what we're seeing there and what we're doing there to help with addiction. But there's a serious mental health epidemic in our country, which we know, and it seems to be exacerbated in our homeless community. And we have a lot of police calls for service at 8th and Indiana, that area, because we are having to help our shelters deal with people that they're simply not equipped to deal with. And that's not their fault, that's not anyone, that's just a reality. And that's tough. And I don't have an answer to that, I'm just pointing out the reality of it. And so, huge gap there.
We heard from Governor Kristi Noem in her State of the State that we have regional mental health facilities now. So I heard that come from her mouth. How are those regional mental health facilities working in real life in this region?
Crisis services are built for a 5-day stay. You're looking to stabilize. It's a triage mechanism. We're, thanks be to God, there's a lot of involuntary. That was really kind of the model that was built off of people that are in such a place that they're a harm to themselves or to others. So we have provisions in statute that we can commit people to those facilities. But there's a lot of voluntary people that I realize need help. I would also throw out 988. Janet Kiddems is here, great success story. That's another triage mechanism. But that's short term. Now they connect them with ongoing care. So enter Southeastern, we can connect them with a counselor, a mental health specialist that would, if there's medication needed, if there's ongoing counseling. But that's where the appropriate regional facilities are really meant for, is I'm in that crisis moment and what do I do? So in Sioux Falls, the Vera Behavioral Health and the Link in combination. So 69th and Louise, as well as downtown here, right up from City Hall.
And just, to be clear, so we don't stigmatize, there are plenty of people with mental health illnesses who have stable housing. But you're saying that you've seen the numbers of the calls and that it is also a problem among people without housing right now, is what I'm hearing you say. I want to push back, because I know, Mayor TenHaken, you can handle it, on this idea of a wicked, intractable problem. Because I was looking today and finding all kinds of communities across the country who came out with some bold ideas that, no, this is not an intractable problem. We need the right leadership, we need the right information, we need the right infrastructure, we need the right collaborations and cooperations, they partnering together with other communities, and I probably found 50 stories of different towns who had done different things to address this. Do you feel like that's an oversimplification, or do you think there are solutions? Because you also mentioned the gathering of mayors. Are you finding solutions in other communities that you think are portable, scalable, and that maybe someday you will not think this is an intractable problem?
I said insolvable. It's not able to be solved because it's not. And I believe that. It's a tension to be managed. Are there some communities that are managing that tension very well and making progress against the headwinds? Yes. Have any communities said, solved it, we're moving on to our next issue? No. The poor you always have with you. Okay? So we will always have a homelessness issue in our community. I firmly believe that. Can we do things better? For sure. So there are just tons of singles to be hit.
How do you set goals? How do you set goals to say, we want to make progress and I want to measure this,
right,
and this is how I'm going to measure it?
One of the reasons I wanted to put this thing together is, going back to my opening remark, there's a huge lack of collaboration in this space. Don't know how else to say it. And until that gets figured out, we are not going to hit any singles. And that has to get figured out. There has to be better collaboration with those pieces of the pie. And we also have to get realistic about decisions we have made as a community to centralize a majority of our services in a 2 or 3 block area. It's not sustainable as this community keeps growing. They need to be downtown adjacent, but we're 220,000 people. We've moved from little to the middle. And so there are decisions we've made that we need to start to question. That was good when we were 150,000. As we move to 300,000, is this still going to be the right setup, the right collaboration? So the challenge for me as a mayor, and I'm only sitting in my chair, is I have no authority in the space. I don't have authority over shelters. I don't have authority over the county. I don't have authority over churches. I don't have authority over these nonprofits and the work they do. So we have to be able to trust each other and work together, because if we don't, we all have a different idea of what success looks like, and our streams could just continue to cross.
So what are some of the ways? Go ahead,
Yeah,
Secretary.
if I could just add to that, though, a casualty we deal with in this space every single day are children. Within DSS, we have the Child Protection Services. And at any given moment, we have 1,800 to 2,000 youth in our custody. Homelessness is a huge factor in why that is happening. So there's a casualty. That my mind immediately goes to our best, most captive audience for solving this is always in education. And so what are we doing to make certain that we have proficiency in reading and writing while they are youth being formed? I totally understand that there's a lot of youth that are struggling with, I don't know where my next meal is coming from. I don't know if mom's going to come home tonight. These are very impairing for a youth's mind's ability to, obtain the knowledge and wisdom that we want to give to them and the skills that education provides them. But if we step back, that's the issue. How do we equip people to navigate the challenges that will come to every one of us? Life is not easy. Life is full of challenges. But we give them not only a good education and ensure that they complete it, we give them a good moral basis for that, make good decisions. Again, I say this in the CPS space, we simply don't have youth that are the children of parents that completed their education, got a job, entered into a committed relationship, and then received life into their bond. That sequence is very strong corroborator to how you avoid homelessness just the same. So how do you get good education and gain skills you need and good decision making with a moral foundation, I think is a huge part of it, which I would affirm with the mayor saying, with the tension. With free will, unfortunately, people are going to make poor decisions or are going to find themselves in circumstances that they don't have the wherewithal to overcome the barriers, the challenges that are going to come to them. So that's what I would invoke in terms of addressing the tension on
Tell me some ways that people might be surprised that you work together. You talked about collaborating amongst governmental agencies. Larissa, are there ways that you work with somebody else on the stage that has surprised you or that has been a new and innovative way to partner?
Yeah, so we work with all of the agencies in Sioux Falls. We specifically work with the city and the county on the referral system. And I would just like to say that, we have this new homeless voucher program that we would like to promote, and that is strictly working with all of the other agencies. So that's all collaborative, and that's all brand new to us and to the city. And so I think that as we continue to work through the network of care, the coordinated entry system, all of these systems together are what brings that starting point to the folks, just like Matt was talking about. So they have to have that starting point. They have to know where to go. And the agencies that are all working together need to collaborate and say, hey, this person, we can't assist them, but we know who can, and get them there, make sure, and do the follow-up. So I think when we talk about the collaborative services here, for the folks on the stage, it's everything. It's all encompassing. So we start with one person and we end up working through several people and getting them to where they need to be. And I would just like to say, we serve over 2,000 people with just housing vouchers, and we probably have 2,000 people on our waiting list. So this is a systemic issue that we need to solve. And I'm just going to put a plug out there, if that's okay. One of the reasons that we can't solve this is because we don't have the landlords who are willing to work with us. We need community support. It's not just the service agencies, it's not the churches, it's not the city and the county. We need community support to make this work. We need landlords who are willing to work with our tenants, landlords who are willing to understand that they're not going to be perfect, but we have the services in place to make them better renters.
I just want to share one quick story on this. So it's a Friday night, like 10 at night. People's last resort when they're like rock bottom, they'll send me DMs, they'll Facebook message me, they'll email me, hey Mayor, I have problems, I'm going to be homeless, I need help. I send it to the county that same night, to Carrie Benz. She replies the next morning on a Saturday, hey, we're on it, we'll deal with it, we're taking care of it. So there's collaboration. She's a county employee, I'm a city employee, but I know that that's her lane, and so there's all this. She has the resources for that. She has the dollars for that. So there's a lot of that happens that maybe people don't really see or know or understand that exists.
All right, we have questions coming in, and there's quite a few of them, so I'm going to do my best. They're actually pretty clear, I think, but if there's any confusions, we can follow up with whoever asked the question if you want to share who sent it in. But here's one that is, what would the city and county plan be if Bishop Dudley Hospitality House and Union Gospel Mission closed tomorrow? We were talking about these shelter organizations who do this work. What would happen if they didn't?
Well, that's a huge hypothetical. It's like, what if our police department stopped policing tomorrow? So if they would close, we would figure it out. We would get people in the room and figure out, okay, what do? We just lost our 2 shelters. So
what does that look like?
I really don't work
like
well in crazy hypotheticals like that, but we would figure it out.
Well, emergency response then. You have a serious emergency response. Who do you get into the room? And I mean, you certainly have an emergency response plan for city leadership. What would it look like? Day one, tomorrow you found it happened, you go into action.
To Dean's point, the buck stops with indigent care with the county. So we would probably say to the county, all right, let's stand up an EOC and let's go into our emergency crisis plan for this. And I'm not trying to speak for you, but that's what we would do.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
I appreciate that, Mayor. Thank you. One of the things that we do, we house a good number of people in hotels throughout the community. And that's kind of our plan B already. So, I mean, I'm going to tell you right now that homelessness is not a government problem. It's a societal problem. It's our community's problem. And in order to prevent the closing of the Bishop Dudley House or the Union Gospel Mission, we need people writing checks because they need help to serve everybody. And it's our community's problem to help these organizations out. We're in this together when it comes to dealing with the issue of homelessness. Again, we want to get people to that next level. So do we have a plan? We always have a plan, but we hope isn't a plan, but we're going to expect the best.
Just a real quick shout out. We've already been there. we might not remember, but the warming house that was run by the Salvation Army was closing, and Mayor Huther at the time said Bishop Swain would dig us out of a hole, hence Bishop Dudley Hospitality House. That all happened. By the way, we had 200, I think Michelle Erpenbach can confirm that. We had 200, Mayor, not 12, standing up and protesting us, trying to get the conditional use permit so we could erect that new facility. But I say that because, wow, what an awesome community that has stepped up when crisis did come on the horizon and has continued to give so generously to these agencies here. I mean, you know, we're dwelling on a little bit of the negative, but we ought to also take pause about what we are doing and what we did do when a crisis arose. A phenomenal response happened.
I do have some lovely positive questions for the end. But you have to answer some of these other ones first. The Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher Program has been closed to new applicants for months. What's the update?
Yeah, so that's a great question, actually. The update is we will be opening the Section 8 waiting list hopefully in March. It is with a new software, so you have to apply online, but we have resources available. You can come into our office, you can go into any of the service agencies, and they know how to get access to our waiting list.
What concerns do you have about the end of SD CARES funds, and what efforts are being made to prepare for the impact?
Boy,
What are SD CARES funds, first of all, for anybody who doesn't know?
Yeah, South Dakota CARES funds were really through the ARPA funds, if I'm not speaking out of turn, correct, Carrie? Yeah. So, I mean, that's where a lot of this money came from. We were spending $2+ million a year, roughly, so with putting people in housing, and the county, quite frankly, saved $1 million a year because we were using that money to supplement our housing money that we were using to pay for rent and deposits. I mean, we pay another $130,000 a year to keep the power turned on, utilities assistance, that type of thing. So we have plans. We know that we had to make up that vacuum with the loss of SD CARES funds, and you know, we're going to keep doing business as we have. We're not going to be able to take care of the same volume of people, but the requirements for South Dakota CARES funds and the Minnehaha County assistance funds are a lot different. They were a lot looser for South Dakota CARES funds.
Let's go back to property managers and landlords. Are there resources available for them? Because there are struggles that many nonprofit organizations are having with mental health. Well, are there resources for landlords who are also going to be having some of those same issues?
Yeah, so we have actually implemented a community health worker program, and our community health workers work with our housing liaison staff. So if there's an issue between a landlord and a tenant, we're the first ones to step in and help address that issue and mediate. In addition to that, we do have some additional funds so that if a landlord and a tenant cannot come together, we will assist the tenant in moving somewhere else and then help that landlord if there's any damage payments, any lost rent, that sort of thing. So we are implementing all of those. Currently, we do have a grant available right now that allows for arrears in rent and it allows for arrears in utilities so that if a landlord's tenant gets behind in that, we can step up and assist them in that so that they don't lose their housing.
There are quite a few questions here about data collection and collaboration. I'm trying to summarize them in one thing, but Mayor Paul, you talked about like, hey, if we don't start collaborating, we can't. Are there specifics that you think need to be addressed in collaboration? I don't want you to call anybody out by name, and obviously they would have a response to why they're not doing what you consider collaboration. But when it comes to data sharing and working together, is there a hurdle? What's the holdup, essentially?
Oh, it's complicated. I mean, I don't want to air dirty laundry, but it's just everybody collects their data in their own way. And some want to share it, some don't. Some sign data sharing agreements, some don't. Some don't want to share it with the city because they don't feel we're a compliant person to share it with. We're a compliant provider. And so it puts us in a spot as a city where we have, you know, last year, 4,600 police calls for service in a 4-block radius at 8th and Indiana, 4,600. I want to know who the most frequent flyers were who were costing this city hundreds of thousands of dollars in public service issues and what they're doing to our service providers as well, but I can't get their names. So you see the challenge I'm in? Like there are certain folks in the business world, this would
What
be
do you do with the information?
What would I do with the information? Those would be our targets. How can we help that person get off drugs, get them housed, get them a job, because they are costing this community a boat ton of money with their current lifestyle. So that's target marketing. And so without knowing that, I'm flying a ship with no controls. And it's very frustrating. And our cops are very frustrated.
There are a few questions here that are dealing with accountability issues and helping people, step into the space of helping themselves. Are there requirements that are attached to certain things? So thematically, maybe we'll start with you, Secretary. There are job training requirements, work requirements. Help us outline some of the guardrails that some of these questions are trying to get at.
So everything in the Department of Social Services, save for the crisis services I mentioned, is income qualified. You're indigent. You're demonstrating you have limited income, and that's a black and white measure, which we have to do because we do all of our work in partnership with the federal government, and they sort of impose that. Very generally speaking, because it varies from TANF to LEAP to SNAP to child care assistance, but there is an expectation that work will be a complement. We see it as a benefit, not a requirement. It's pejorative to refer to as a requirement. It's a benefit. So when I talk about that, the employment specialists that are working with those that are now Medicaid enrolled or those that are now child care assistance enrolled or SNAP, the most common, we are linking them with somebody that will help them say, well, what are you interested in? What are your skills? Where did you complete your education? What do you think you're good at doing? Oh, there's an inventory. Why have you not been able to keep employment? Why have you not been able to procure employment? Can we help you with interview skills? Oh, you didn't complete your education. Maybe we can get you to Southeast Tech where you can complete a trades degree. Those are the sort of inventories that are going on as a benefit to your enrollment in our ongoing programming with the economic assistances that we provide. So that's human melodrama, because the answer is different for every single person that walks in. So it doesn't lead to these bright line, here's the cattle chute that everybody's going. But in a very circuitous way, we see where those individuals are, in fact, leading to, and even on the TANF program, I just threw out a commercial there, that we have an incentive program. If you stay in employment, your benefit actually increases as you stay in that work. It's a reward for remaining committed to what we want for you. Self-sufficiency. We want for you to, again, rediscover the sense of fulfillment. So I would say, I describe it, it's really hard to sort of put, because that's fungible with every human being having different gift sets, different skill sets, different completed education, and so it looks a little different for every one of them. But I think that there's a pretty good success story that's going on there in Department of Social Services.
This one also for you. What can we do to help individuals better access Medicaid services before they're in a healthcare crisis?
I don't know the answer to that quite now, and I'll give myself a little bit of grace. Medicaid expansion is a really relevant element to this because, prior to July 1st, 2023, you basically qualified for Medicaid if you were a mother with children. It was 46% federal poverty level and children. Now with Medicaid expansion, it's 138 on the federal poverty level. So we're just learning now a population that has gone, it would appear, for a really long period without health insurance. And so therefore, they just didn't go to the doctor. They just instinctively didn't. So now we're finding a very strong correlate that they need medical care. They apply, or they go to the doctor oftentimes, and we get them enrolled in that. So stay tuned. I think we'll get better about how do we think in terms of, now that I have access to this, we don't want you to be on government assistance long, but how do you immediately gain an insight into preventative medicine? Be proactive in taking care of yourself now that you have access to coverage.
I love this crowd because now all these positive questions are coming in. don't know if that means you want to wrap up or if that means you just want to. All right, so if this is a tension to manage and not a problem to solve, what does success look like for each of you? We'll start with the commissioner.
And I'm going to ask you to repeat that.
Since this is a tension to manage and not necessarily a problem to solve, what does success look like for you?
You know, you had a question before. What's the next thing we do? I mean, there's been so many different things. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time, right? So, I mean, it might be Safe Home that Minnehaha County does. The link that the city and the county and the healthcare organizations have come together with to provide services for mental health and substance use. It's just every little thing that we do is just one more solution, and it's just helping one more person or another group of people. It's getting somebody off the street. So what does success look like? It's one less person that needs our help and has become self-reliant. So it's a small thing, but it happens one at a time.
I think if we had a system that just flowed, I mean, it's just seamless. Like everybody knew their lane and it just flowed easily, and there was like master computer system that just made it all work together. And so when Lori went through the system, we tracked it all and we could see how she's doing, and her interactions with PD has dropped by 36% since this, and the data could tell us this is working. And she went to the link 4 times last month, but only 2 times this month, and she got on this medication. So like, just data. Like if a system that just flowed and all the data was sharing, like, so that would be incredible. I mean, it's very Pollyanna, but that's to me where we have to try and get to. And it's hard with so many players.
Lori, by the way, has the VA. So shout out to the veterans. Applause for the people who are helping veterans in our community, because there's some really pretty good services there. Go ahead, Larissa. What does success look like for you?
Success for me looks similar to what the mayor just said. Having that system, that place where people can go and get the help that they need when they need it, and not have to wait long term, and not end up homeless, not end up on the street because they couldn't get the assistance that they needed quick enough. I'm a big proponent of data collection, and I feel like the agencies, the nonprofits in the area, all of us have the resources. We all have the ability to do it. We just need to come together and get that plan in place.
Maybe real quick too, I'd say one success I want to point to, because I think the mayor's appointment of Michelle Treasure here, there needs to be somebody that can be quarterback. So I just really appreciate what the mayor sees in this role, and wish Michelle the great, because somebody's got to there's somebody that can continue to gather data. So these issues of different enterprise technologies, they don't talk to each other, and it's really hard to download data and talk to others. But this is, to the mayor's great point, it's a community issue. So success looks to me like tender hearts, understanding hearts, persons that are willing to, that's not somebody else's job, that's my role as a Sioux Falls resident to say, what is it that you on the street I see are having a hard time with? Or the neighbor that we might not even know is struggling. That's I think ultimately we offer support to strangers out of the goodness and charity of our hearts, seeking to understand what are their challenges. And then with the wherewithal and giftedness and resource we've been given, we provide encouragement and support. And that might be all it is, right? I'm not in any way trying to imply that now everybody open up your basement and open up a bedroom downstairs for persons. That's not at all. I'm absolutely a believer that the more understanding we are, the more willing that we are to see them as our neighbor and our friend, the more likely we're going to find fewer people that are without a home.
So we're going to wrap it up and leave it there. I'm going to give you one more chance if there's any final thoughts that you want to say. But there's a lot of questions that I did not get to ask, and that's the wonderful gift of being in journalism, is that I get to continue to tell those stories. So I have the questions. I'm going to do some research into some of them and try to answer some of them or reach out. If you sent me a question and you want me to have your contact information, come find me afterwards, and I'll make sure that you have mine. And again, it's in the moment at sdpb.org. Pretty easy way to reach our producers, who are way better at answering email than I am. Final thoughts. for what the community can do, things you particularly would like to recommend for the next mayor, for example. What's your advice to whoever decides to take
Don't
this?
do it. Don't. You know, I'll start by saying a lot of people in this room are service providers, or you're here either because you work in this space or you're passionate about it. And thank you for that. Thank you. None of us have the answers or the key to this challenge. I certainly do not. And I screw up on this issue constantly. And my ask is always just give us grace. You know, we're trying. And April and May is going to be here soon, and our homelessness community will become more visible again. Okay? And people will see it more. And our phone will start ringing in our office, and the emails will start showing up. And it will become an issue again in Sioux Falls. And we may disagree sometimes on the path, but we all want the end goal. We all want the end goal. And that end goal would be to solve homelessness. If Bishop Dudley could close because we don't have any more business, like that would be success. Like, oh, no more business, you guys are done. Well, let's put a come and go there. And so I think we all want to get to the same spot. We sometimes disagree on how we get there. And that's okay. Attention creates good policy, okay? Creates good ideas. And so I'll close with this too. This shouldn't just be like, all right, check the box, we had a homelessness forum. Like, we should do this again. And get the bureaucrats off the stage and let's have the providers up here next time. And what are you guys seeing at the provider level? You know? So, and then let's get some faith leaders from the faith community. And what are they doing? And then let's get some businesses that are downtown at 8th and Indiana area. And what are they seeing? And what are they doing? And what are they experiencing? There's 8 potential more forums right there that we could have on this. I know the Community Foundation has money to sponsor this. Sorry, Patrick. But let's not let this end here. Not just on SCPB, but I think we should do more of these on this topic, because the more we can have a mutual understanding of everyone else's positions, I think mutual understanding creates mutual policy, mutual kind of objectives towards a common goal.
Yeah.
You know, I would just give a huge shout out again to Carrie Benz and her staff. County Human Services is doing the heavy lift, and they're really working for collaboration. We've come a long way. Collaboration's a two-way street. Everybody needs to. We got service providers. We need to work together to really come to common solutions. So work with our Human Services Department so that we can continue to reach that common goal of having a issue that we can manage and do it effectively and do it together between all of our nonprofits and all the service providers, and just make this a better, well-managed issue. And I hate that word, but that's what I'm going to use.
Well, in closing, I just want to thank all of my staff, of course, that came here and assisted me, and all of the service providers, the city, the county. I'm the new person here. I'm the new kid on the block, and they assisted, they helped me, they educated me, and they said, this is what we need. And I still feel like this community is strong. This community, and all the communities that I have been in, this community is strong. It's resource rich. And I just want to thank all of the service providers, everybody who's working in the industry, because I, for one, do believe that there are solutions out there. I think that we'll never end homelessness completely, but there are solutions out there to make it something that's survivable. And so thank you, everyone.
Just humbled to look out and see so many familiar faces that I know toil every single day in the vineyard and do just really heroic things and don't seek attention for that. So thank you, all of you that do that work. Isn't it true that sometimes our frustrations come about because we place expectations onto others, and that was never theirs. Let us never lose sight of the fact that there is this dignity that was given to each and every one of the persons that we've been talking about in generalities here tonight, and some of this is a personal decision. The road to recovery from substance use oftentimes takes many attempts with treatment and supports. The hurts caused by whatever happened, whatever drama that they've experienced in their life with loved ones or others causes them to think in certain ways. And our role isn't to fix them, hence we get frustrated and we call the mayor, or we call now Pierre if you want and find me. But we love on them and we emphasize, well, there's the dignity of choice that they have. My role is to just provide a red carpet for them to walk on. And let us keep ourselves looking in that direction rather than, as an effort, frankly, to guard against despair. Because the data and the numbers can be daunting and it can be discouraging, and we ought to be people of hope. There is a lot of wonderful things going on in our community. There's a lot of opportunities for persons to gain self-sufficiency and secure housing for themselves. Our role isn't to get it to them. Our role is to show them ways that they can achieve it for themselves. So, my last words.
Thank you to the panel. Thank you to Sioux Falls Area Community Foundation. Thank you for the questions. Thanks, Vanessa.